Hi there. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how we use the mind. And obviously, the Course in Miracles is a course about miracles. What are they? How do we arrive at them? And so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, kind of stripping it down to its barest bones, a miracle is a change in perception. It's a change in the way we use our mind. And that change moves us out of the delusional system of the ego, which is a system of thought designed to teach us how to experience an idea of separation, an idea of being separate from one another, separate from God, separate from the universe within which we live and breathe and have our beingness. And the miracle is a switch in the mind, a movement out of that ideality into an experience of what is described in the Course as truth, or as a holy instant. It's a correction in the mind, and it takes us back into an experience that tells us the deeper truth about ourselves as divine beings, created in love, perpetually in a state of love and relating to one another through this experience of love. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of lately how I've been working with this particular question or prompt to myself, and that is, how am I using my mind today? And for the majority of the time, we are using our mind to generate thoughts, which I'm going to call witnesses, thoughts and experiences and perceptions that validate the ego, validate this idea of being separate. So we're basically using our mind to call forth witnesses for the defense of the ego, or witnesses for the defense of the idea that we're separate, that we're mortal, that we're fallible, that we're full of sin. What is sin? A state of separation, a state of imperfection, a state of suffering. Most of the time, we've taken this fabulous resource that was given to us by God, called our mind, and the part that we dwell in, where we have this sense of an identity, so our conscious mind, we have taken this resource, taken this mind, and given it a task, and basically programmed it and said, your task, mind, is to generate experiences and perceptions that validate my idea that I'm separate, that tell me that this is real. And so we've created a whole sensory apparatus called the body and called the emotions and called perception that creates this, or experience, creates this simulation of this idea. And so the mind, basically, the resource of the mind has been assigned and programmed. Do this. Tell me about separation. Tell me about suffering. Tell me about pain, because all of those things validate this idea. However, when we get tired of that, when we wander around in this this simulation long enough, we finally get to a point where we're just exasperated and we say, this just isn't a good enough experience. It's not good. There must be a better way. I have this kind of sense in the back of my mind that I've forgotten something essential. I've had these other experiences which kind of approximate love and peace and connection. And I want to know more about that. And I want to go there with my mind. And so once we start that journey, once we're kind of done using our mind in this particular way that we've assigned it, then we have to go through this process of deprogramming the mind. And we have to do it. I mean, we have to show up and do the work. We're the ones that programmed this level of consciousness to work in a certain way. So we are the ones then who get to change our mind about that and basically teach this level of consciousness to work differently, to remember its natural innate state. And that's when we start to use the mind to gather witnesses for spirit. What do I mean by witnesses? Thoughts, perceptions, and experiences that validate love, that validate connection, that validate the truth. And it's amazing to me to observe how much of the mind is on this automatic pilot of taking in data in such a way that this idea of separation is perpetually repeated over and over again, so that all the data coming, what appears to be coming in to me from what appears to be outside of me, is telling me, yes, look, indeed, I have a separate body, it's separate from that person, I have separate thoughts, we don't see things the same way, we experience things differently. Oh, look, this body feels pain, it ages, it suffers, this must be the truth. But what we don't understand is that our experience is based on our perception. Our perception is based on our beliefs, and our beliefs are based on this idea of being separate. When we begin to move out of that and start to change our mind about how we want to use our mind, we begin to heal. We begin this fantastic journey. And in Course in Miracles, they call this process atoning or at-oneing. And that's where we're basically taking this precious commodity called the mind, and we're taking it out of its program and letting it return to its natural state of oneness within God the Father, our Creator, and within the universe within which we live. So how do we do this? How do we turn this into a practical way of living? What can you do today with this information? And that's be aware. So if you're rolling along and suddenly you're not feeling too well, you either have a pain in your body, or you're feeling grumpy, or you're feeling whatever, or you're thinking in a manner that's causing you stress or anxiety. Instead of trying to fix any of that, instead of jumping in first and trying to fix all that, because in order to fix it, you have to believe that it's true. You have to believe that all that stuff that's going on in the mind is true and real. And then you're just going to jump in and you're going to try to put band-aids on it and fix. Okay, so you're still in your dream, you're still in your program, and you're just trying to shuffle things around and say, well, let me make it a slightly better, less painful, more pleasant delusion. What I'm encouraging you to do today is to just step back and say, you know what? I don't like the way I'm feeling right now. How am I using my mind? Am I using my mind to generate witnesses for the defense of the ego? Or am I using my mind to generate witnesses for spirit? Pretty clear, if I'm unhappy, in pain, anxious, I'm using my mind to witness my ego world. So how do I change it? I put myself up for correction. I say, oh, so there's kind of a bridge then between these two states of mind and that's called present time. And that's called mindfulness. And right there in present time, you can zoom out into what I call the inner witness, the part that's not so convinced that this is a good idea over here, this world of the ego, and is really kind of starting to seek this reality over here. Get on the bridge and say, I'm going to allow my mind to be corrected. I'm going to turn it over to what the Course calls the Holy Spirit. So it might be helpful to think of the Holy Spirit in this way. Think of it as that part of your mind that hasn't been programmed, that hasn't been assigned the task of creating a delusion for yourself. It's the part that has remained in a state of absolute perfection. It's the part that is known as the Son of God. It's the part that's known as the Christ consciousness. And the Holy Spirit is this aspect of mind that does the correcting. In the Rancher book, they call it the thought adjuster. In kind of New Age terminology, called the higher self, and in Christian ethic they call it the Holy Spirit. So this is this agency of mind that gets us out of our mental prisons. It's a correcting agency. It returns us to love. So as you get on that bridge and you say, okay, I admit I've taken my mind And I've given it the task of telling me this story that I've been living in for a long time, and using this thing called a body in a certain way, and using my emotional reactivity in a certain way, and using my mind in a certain way. I admit this, but if I could assign it that program, that means that I can choose to stop assigning it that program, and I can let it be corrected. So I turn it over to this higher agency of mind, and then I wait. Okay, because we are in the time-space continuum here. As long as we're participating in this ego world, we're dealing with time and space. A holy instant, which is this correction agency, basically collapses the timeline. You don't need to worry about that too much. What does that mean in practical terms? What it means is that as you make that request, I am willing, help me change my perception that I may know the truth. Help me understand the problem in my mind that I may know the answer. Help me move out of calling up witnesses for the defense of the ego and open up to witnesses for spirit. Let me allow that change to happen, and then go about your day. Go about your day and use your tools. Use positive affirmations. Use music that you love. Get your body moving. Do things that catalyze positive experiences for you. And allow this agency of mind to come in and start to help you make that very shift that you've asked for. This tremendous deprogramming of the mind takes place as you do this, and you begin to become willing to focus on what spirit is bringing forward in your mind. The more you do that, the more real it becomes to you, the more experiential it becomes for you, and also the more willing you are to sit back and recognize, how am I using my mind today? Am I using my mind to create peace and love and connection and joy? Or am I using my mind to hurt myself? To hurt my experience of myself and others? Okay. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to allow it to go through this transformative process, and I'm going to allow myself to be taken into this other experience. And I'm going to listen to the prompts, the inner guidance system, the inner thoughts that lead me towards peace, towards love, towards happiness, towards wellness. And a lot of that has to do then with letting go of the effects that you've created over here. Letting the body pain go. Take proper care of the body. You want to take care of it, but just don't over-identify with it. Just let it work itself out. Letting those emotions go, letting those crazy hamster wheel thoughts go, and moving over gently but firmly into this other state of mind. All right, so play with that a little bit over the next month or so. I mean, as long as you can, really. Catch yourself whenever you're not experiencing happiness, whenever you're not experiencing wellness, whenever you're experiencing anything that, isn't up to snuff. Stop and say, how am I using my mind right now? How do I want to use my mind? And then let it go through this correcting process. I'd love to hear from you. So leave me your thoughts and comments. If you have any questions, reach out and talk to me. And keep in mind that my Ascension class is going to be starting up in August. And you're more than welcome to join us in that class. Just go to my website, janetmyatt.com, and go to the classes page, and you'll see how to register for that. I also have a Miracles meditation and healing retreat coming up in October this year, and I have a Course in Miracles study group, and all of that you can find out on my website, and I hope you will join us. All right, in the meantime, peace be with you, and I'll see you next time.